What happens on this podcast a lot, Phil, is that we'll predict something that happens, and then not only will our podcast listeners forget about it 3 podcasts later, or maybe even an hour later, we'll forget about it, and we never are held accountable.
That changes today.
That changes now. We're going to make predictions for 2019, and then at the end of this year, we're going to come back and see how we did.
It's the last podcast of the year. We're going to go figure out how we did on our predictions.
Yes.
Assuming this podcast is still going at the end of the year.
Hey, we're going to come up on 1 year in this spring.
That's right.
Right around the spring election, we're going to have some kind of a bash. I don't know.
Will there be beer involved?
Or coffee. Depends on if we schedule it before noon or not. But today on Center Stage, the Wisconsin State Journal's political podcast from the sensible center of Wisconsin politics, we're going to inform you long before any of these things happen. What's going to happen in 2019? How cool is that?
We know.
We're smart enough. We know exactly what's going to happen in the coming year in Wisconsin politics and beyond. I'm Scott Milfred, the editorial page editor for the Wisconsin State Journal.
And I'm Phil Hands. I'm the editorial cartoonist for the Wisconsin State Journal.
And we are half of the Wisconsin State Journal editorial board.
The better-looking half. Look deep into my crystal ball. What do you got for your predictions? I have a couple.
In state politics, Tony Evers is the governor right now, and I think there's a few easy things we could predict. Like, the state budget's going to be late. It's supposed to be done on July 1st. It almost never is.
Ever since they added air conditioning to the Capitol building, it's never done on time.
And
that was the thing. When they wanted to add air conditioning, wasn't that one of the issues? That they said, well, we always like to. If you have air conditioning in the building, the budget will be late because it won't be uncomfortable for the lawmakers to hang around.
Yeah, I think there was a threat to turn it off at one point.
Yeah.
But what I'm going to predict is, of course, now this is divided government. We've had 8 years of Republicans running the show down at the State House. Now we're going to have a Republican legislature, Democratic governor. So, gridlock. The budget will be late. More than a month past July. But I'm predicting it will not be as late as it was the last time when Voss and Fitz and the governor couldn't agree, and it was more than 10 weeks late.
And that was mostly over transportation issues.
It was, right? Which brings me to my second prediction. A 5-cent gas tax increase in the budget.
Okay, a 5-cent gas tax increase. Is that going to be indexed for inflation, or is that going to just be one-time increase?
I suppose if it was indexed, that might actually be more of a sustainable solution.
You might be able to get away with a 3% increase, 3% one-time increase if you index it.
No, I'm just going with a straight 5-cent.
5-cent.
5-cent gas tax increase. It doesn't bring in a giant amount of money, but it's something like $150 million.
And I'm going to predict a smaller increase that is indexed, because that would be the smart decision. And I think that Robin Voss and Scott Fitzgerald and Tony Evers are all smart people. They're not morons.
Well, they do seem to agree that it's time to do this. The gas tax has not been increased in more than a decade. Neither has the registration, unless you own a Prius. Which half of Madison does.
Those evil Prius drivers.
Yeah, then you're paying through the nose. But I think that's an easy place where they're going to come together and do something. I also think Tony Evers' first State of the State address will be even more boring than all of Scott Walker's were.
I agree with that. Yeah, that seems...
That's a safe bet.
That seems like a very safe bet.
One more on Evers. He will not get a fashion upgrade. Do you remember when Paul Ryan became...
He already got his fashion upgrade.
It was pretty minor, though, wasn't it?
Well, he got his new glasses, and he got a hairdo that is less wispy and wild than it used to be.
Okay, see, I didn't really notice that.
His hair kind of got slicked back. His hair used to go all over the place, and if you see some photographs of him like on the campaign trail, you'll see his hair going every which direction. But
it wasn't just windy?
No.
You're just saying now he's got product.
Now that he's got somebody doing his look. So he's already getting a fashion. He's already gotten a fashion upgrade.
So I would be right that it's not going to happen, but I'm wrong in that it already happened.
It's already happened.
See, I didn't even notice it.
Well, it was subtle.
I remember
but you're not a cartoonist who studies this man's face on a regular basis.
What I was thinking was when Paul Ryan became Speaker of the House, I thought there was a noticeable upgrade in his clothing.
No, he had an upgrade for the presidential race. when he became vice president. That's when his upgrade
that's right.
happened.
That's when
he got a new haircut. He got his haircut got cool and less goofy,
right.
And he got styled, and he became.
He started wearing better threads on a consistent basis. Okay, you're right. That was back when he was running for VP.
Yeah.
Okay. God, I'm glad I got you here to fact check.
I know. Cartoonist fact checking.
Okay.
I got one more Tony Evers prediction, actually.
Go.
Tony Evers will get censored by the Republican legislature for his boorish behavior and foul mouth. Holy mackerel.
A censure? A full censure?
A full censure.
Ah.
Do they do that here?
I don't know. Yeah, I think they do. Didn't they do that to the guy who was getting drunk all the time and they had to bail out for votes?
That's right, yeah.
And I think they did censure him, or they thought about doing it. Well,
one of our state's proud independents.
Yeah, it's like one of the few independents ever to serve in the legislature in modern times. He totally screws it up for us.
Yeah, no kidding.
Thank you very much. At least we've forgotten his name, and every's forgotten him. So
I'm drawing lots of cartoons about him too. Actually, I don't remember his name. I just remember I remember I had him as intoxicated.
I guess I have one more on Evers, which is, I suspect, weren't you just saying today that he had upset Madison? I think he's going to upset Madison.
Oh, he will, yeah.
And you had said there was already some rumblings about
Yeah, well, because he held his inauguration at the same place, the same corner of the Capitol where Scott Walker had the last 2 years, and Scott Walker had moved it away from the bust of Fighting Bob La Follette.
Yeah.
Because he didn't like Fighting Bob La Follette.
Yeah.
That proud Republican governor of Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And Tony Evers decided to do it in the same place that Scott Walker has, as opposed to moving it back to in front of the bust of La Follette. And some liberals are pretty pissed off about that.
The implication being he's not returning our state to its progressive roots. He's sticking with Walker, and he's going to be Republican light.
Republican light, yeah.
As Matt Flynn accused him of in the Democratic primary. But yes, you're right. The odd thing is Fighting Bob La Follette was a Republican for most of his career, but that complicates things.
Other predictions. We know that the Solidarity Singers are still singing.
For now.
At the end of the year, are they still going to be singing?
God, I hope not.
The world's longest encore?
I'm thinking no. I think they're going to peter out.
You think they're going to peter out?
Yeah, and I hope they don't listen to our podcast, because they will not peter out if we said they would.
As long as they can all get together for pitchers of beer afterwards, they're going to keep singing.
Oh, okay. But back on Evers pissing off Madison occasionally, because he's not going to be a Madison liberal. He's going to be a Plymouth moderate. I think he will allow another charter school that is outside the scope of the Madison School Board.
Oh, that sounds reasonable. Another evil charter school will be open to the city of Madison.
To try to do some new things for our schools, yes. Like Kaleem Care. But I guess I'm going back to, remember when we had Tony Evers in for an endorsement meeting, and we said, well, are you going to shut down Kaleem Care's charter school here in Madison because it's outside of the scope of the Madison School Board, and Madison hates that? And he said, no, I gave him a grant.
That's right.
So I think he's a little more open on some of that stuff, and I think you'll see that he can agree with the Republican legislature on some of that. He won't go nearly as far as they want to, and he'll probably pull back from what they've done, but it'll still piss off Madison.
Do I have to use my sarcasm bell to say that I was being sarcastic when I said charter schools were evil?
Yeah, we do need a little ding. Yeah, you're so straight with your sarcasm that I'm the only one who gets it. All right, moving right along. I don't know anything about these two candidates for Supreme Court this spring.
Yeah.
But I think the Democratic-backed one will win because Democrats continue to be more fired up, in part because of that whole lame duck session thing.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that by the time the spring election rolls around in April, the legislature will have passed something to piss off the liberals such that they'll stay energized.
Yeah.
And I think with Trump in the White House, the Republicans aren't going to be as energized. And unfortunately, even though judicial elections are supposed to be nonpartisan, we're supposed to pick the most experienced, respected, independent judge, that's not how we do it.
No, we don't do it that way.
Most people just say, oh, well, who's a Republican? Who's a Democrat? Cha-ching, and they go that way.
Yep.
So I think the Democratic favored one is going to win. That doesn't mean we will endorse that person. I do not know anything about them. I'm just saying that it feels like that momentum is still carrying forward this spring.
Yeah, I think as long as Trump's in the White House and doing dumb things, we're going to have a fired up Democratic base. And I don't think that Tony Evers is going to do anything that's really going to fire up the right in the state. He doesn't seem like that. I mean, he might say some dumb things here and there or do some silly stuff, but he's not going to do anything to the level of, the lame duck session or what Trump does, before 2 a.m. on a Saturday morning.
Yeah, and I don't know how this strategy is going to work, but it almost seems like he has a passive-aggressive strategy where he's...
In Wisconsin, we call that very aggressive.
But he's not really picking fights. Even when they started to take away a small amount of his power, he wasn't really going after him. He was still kind of laying back. He wants them sort of to be throwing the first punches, and then he's going to be the grown-up, and we'll see how that works in the Trump era. It worked for the election.
It did.
Maybe he can get a lot of what he wants just by hanging back. That usually is not how you do it, but it's a weird time.
I got one more statewide prediction. Foxconn will not add 13,000 jobs this year.
In other words, you agree with Trump. It will be way more than 13,000 jobs.
It'll be way more than 15,000 jobs. I'd love to see that be a successful project for that side of the state. I'm not optimistic that it will be.
Well, we're pouring so much money into it that it's hard to see that it won't have a positive economic impact over there.
Oh, I forgot. I have one more statewide prediction. Scott Walker will make a ton of money doing very little. He's going to serve on like 4 boards and get really rich and run for office again in 7 years.
He lost, I think, this election more than any other reason because of Donald Trump, and he's doubling down. Like he said, I'm going to be the #1 spokesman for Donald Trump and his agenda in Wisconsin. It's like, really?
And now that he's not governor, I don't know what's going on in that cabinet-induced bald head of his anymore.
All right, but I do not think he'll run for governor again, even though that was mentioned in the paper the other day.
No, I think he's got his eyes on Ron Johnson's Senate seat after Ron Johnson retires. I had a couple citywide issues that
let's go there. Let's go to the city of Madison.
My first prediction: Paul Soglin wins re-election.
Yeah, I got that one down too. I think that's going to happen. It just feels like a sleepy race. Granted, it's only January, but the primary's next month.
We're going to whittle it down to 2 candidates, and I'm assuming it's going to be Paul Soglin and someone else.
Yep.
We don't have any polling on this yet, so I don't even know how people's names are being recognized.
Yeah, but
I know in my neighborhood we see a lot of signs for Raj Shukla, but he lives in the neighborhood, so
I did see one of those over on Buckeye on the east side, by the way.
Okay, yeah.
Cheeks and Satya Rhodes Conway, they've got a digital thing going in a big way. I'm getting lots of
emails from them.
Yeah.
Mo keeps addressing me by my first name, which is kind of, we're not that close, Mo. When it comes down to it, it's going to be Paul Soglin with all the experience and knowledge in the world up against somebody who is going to look like an amateur compared to him. There's a certain percentage of people in Madison who are pro-cop and worried about crime. Paul Soglin's going to get every single one of those votes because nobody's going to run to the right of Paul Soglin when it comes to supporting the police. Paul Soglin's also going to get a lot of liberal votes because he's a liberal progressive and has a long history of doing those things.
I.e. baby boomers. That's his wheelhouse, and they vote more than anybody. It does seem like he should win. Now, we'll know soon enough because when Chislevich knocked him off that one time, it was shocking when Chislevich was narrowly ahead of him in the primary.
Yeah, yeah.
So if somebody's right with him in the primary, then whoa.
We got a race
We got a race here. I would expect him to be well ahead in the primary because the rest of the field is large and split.
So prediction related to Soglin. By the end of the year, the city will not have chosen a developer for the new part of the JDS site. This Judge Doyle Square development, we're now looking for a new developer for the half of the project, and I guarantee you by the end of the year, that will not be sorted out yet. I do have one prediction for the city of Madison. Crime statistics will go down again, and people will continue to freak out about how the city's going to hell.
Yeah, that seems to happen every year. We just had the news that there were fewer shootings this year, right?
The city's going to hell, Scott. This isn't the Madison where I grew up.
Yeah. Anyway, you're probably right about that. One more prediction that's related to the city, but also has national implications. Donald Trump will not get his wall, but the Dudgeon Monroe neighborhood will get a wall between it and Edgewood.
That sounds
High
about
School.
right. That sounds about right.
Because we had the story this year where part of Edgewood's compromise is they'll put up some kind of barrier between the school and the neighborhood.
And the whiny neighbors.
And the whiny neighbors. It's going to be loud. To stop the sound. So in other words...
Build the wall. Build the wall.
Maybe instead of no new stadium signs, they will do build the wall signs. They could recycle those and put them up along Edgewood High School.
That sounds good.
Yeah. So the near west side will get a wall, but Mexico will not. And not only that, Dudgeon Monroe neighborhood will get the wall, and Edgewood High School will pay for it.
Edgewood High School will pay for it.
Yeah.
I think we'll still have cops in schools at the end of the year.
I guarantee you we will. Yeah.
We'll still have people whining about cops in schools at the end of the year.
We absolutely will.
The lakes will stink this summer.
They will. We probably will have more flooding, but hopefully not.
On the national scene, I have one major prediction for all the Russia stuff.
Oh, okay.
So I think Mueller's investigation will get a report sometime this year.
Yep.
And they're not going to find anything they can actually criminally charge the president with.
Mm-hmm.
But there's going to be so much dirty laundry and junk that the Democrats feel they need to impeach the president.
Okay.
And they're going to try to impeach the president, and they're going to vote for it in the House, and there's no way the Senate's going to actually vote to impeach the president. So we'll have a mess.
No, so we will impeach him in the House, but the Senate won't convict?
They won't convict in the Senate.
Okay.
That's my prediction.
All right. I would only add a caveat of there probably will be some things in the report that conceivably he could be charged with, but they're not going to they're not going to go there because of this ambiguity about whether he can be charged while he's in office.
Yeah.
And then there will be that cloud of, well, will he be charged when he leaves? Anything else? You know, on the national scene, I'm thinking at this time, so let's say the end of 2019 when we fact-check this, I'm going to say Beto O'Rourke is leading the Democratic presidential primary field in the polls.
I would support that, and I'll bet you that Joe Biden will have said, I'm not running.
Here's my other national prediction. John Kasich will run for president, but not in the Republican primary because he'd get creamed.
He's going to run as an independent?
Running as an independent just to siphon off some of the no-Trumpers and just to piss Trump off and to wound him in the general election.
I think you're right.
One unrelated prediction. The Milwaukee Brewers will win the World Series.
See, I had a similar prediction.
Let me guess. Detroit Tigers.
Defeat the Milwaukee Brewers in Game 7 of the World Series.
Please. At least we have a decent team that you guys are still rebuilding, aren't you?
That's when it's always the most exciting, though. I mean, who thought the Brewers were going to do anything this year, right? Who thought?
We're supposed to have a decent team.
Maybe. I get another prediction for that because I have so much faith in the Packers. The Packers will go 2-14 next year.
No.
But they will beat the Bears twice, so it doesn't matter.
So it's still a successful season.
A successful season.
Any other predictions here? Any like cartoon-related predictions? I predict you will draw Tony Evers as some sort of monster, some sort of animal, and you've already drawn him as a little boy. That's too easy. How about and as
a woman?
And as a machine.
As a machine. Evers Bot 2000?
Yeah, and I predict there will be at least 24 letters to the editor that are drivers mad at bikers, and at least 24 letters to the editor which are bikers mad at drivers.
And at least 300 letters to the editor complaining about Edgewood, or in support of Edgewood Stadium.
To listen to past episodes of Center Stage with Milfred and Hands, go to go.madison.com/center stage. You can also find or follow us on your favorite podcasting app. Special thanks this week to Sought After Sounds, Tyra Komori, Fabiana LM, and Amish Rob for their sound effects.